Hi, I'm Celine Williams. And let me take this music down a little bit and welcome you to Using Words That Heal Mother-Daughter webinar. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have several co-hosts with me. Let's start with Taria Hodge. I don't know if she can hear us or if you can hear her. I also have my daughter, Candace Williams. Hi, Candace. I have Shawnee Benton Gibson, and of course, yours truly. Dr. Tony Hatton, who was joining us, had a time conflict, so she won't be able to join us today. We will have to have another webinar where we get a chance to have her phenomenal experience and that of her daughters as well.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you? This is Taria. I'm here.
Awesome, awesome. Looking for my other co-hosts. Where are they?
They'll be joining us very shortly.
Very shortly.
Sure of that.
So while we're waiting, we want you to do a couple of really important things. You're going to laugh when you hear it, though. I want you to stand up and stand out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and let your people know what you're doing right now, because I will tell you that in our society, there is not a lot of positive focus on females. Hear me when I say that. And so we want the world to know, at least our communities, our Facebook communities, our Instagram, our Twitter. I'm not on anything else. I don't know about you guys. LinkedIn, and let them know that you are on a webinar. Is no charge for it. That has to do. Hey, there she is.
Do my iPad.
All right, all right.
There she is.
Candace in the house. Taria in the house. Where is Shawnee? Is Shawnee joining us?
Is that better?
Yeah. So what we'll do is, I'm just letting everybody know, please go to we have a Facebook page for mothers and daughters. It's called Mother-Daughter Conversations. And I'd like you to go over there and let us know you're joining us today. And you can say something like, "See, Lynn, I'm here!" Exclamation point. Okay, so our hashtag for tonight is hashtag using words that heal. All right?
Good.
Using words that heal. Hashtag using words that heal. Okay? So we put a question up over in that Facebook page in the Mother-Daughter Conversations, where we are asking you, what is your biggest, most challenging part of raising a daughter? And guess what? Mothers, we ask daughters different questions. And so I'm going to ask Candace in a minute to tell us what was her most challenging part of being my daughter. And I know she'll tell you because she doesn't hold back her words. And then we're going to ask Taria as well when Taria comes back on, because this is an interactive webinar. We're not here just to talk to you. We want you to talk to us as well. The way you can talk to us is through Facebook, because Taria is going to monitor the questions, and then we get them and we just talk about them, okay? So please don't act like everything has been all okie dokie, because it hasn't been. Raising a daughter, living with a mother, strong-willed personalities. Am I right? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. So we started out with a little music, and we had you go to the Facebook community and share. Go ahead and share, because you know what? You can't keep all this important information to yourself. You got to share it with your family and friends. You know, everything might be good in your household, but maybe your aunt or maybe your, I don't know, your sister, maybe they got issues in their household, and nobody ever wants to talk about it, right? We're going to put all that aside tonight. What's said in this community stays in this community, but we hope that you share it with your sister friends and your nieces and your daughters and your granddaughters, because we're trying to have a wonderful relationship with each other as women. And we cannot do that when we are scowling at each other and rolling our eyes and just not getting along. So, all right, so I've introduced our guests. We're going to just talk about maybe 3 things, unless you come up with some other things for us from the audience, that really have a lot to do with mothers and daughters getting along. Okay? So right now what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm going to turn over the stage to Candace Williams, my daughter. Candace,
Hello.
how are you, dear?
Good. How are you?
Awesome, awesome. So tell them a little bit about you. Tell our community here.
Well, I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Missouri. I have a private practice where I see children, youth, and families for therapy and counseling. And I also am a supervisor at BJC Behavioral Health, which is a community mental health facility in St. Louis City. So I am a person that loves to talk, and I really enjoy working with young people and helping them figure out the best avenues for success as they get older. And so it's really important to me that they have the tools that they need to become successful. I feel like I was given the tools that I needed to be successful, but I also feel like you have to have the motivation in order to do so. So my calling is to work with young people and to help them get to that point, and then to also help their parents and other people that are in their lives reach that point as well. So
Awesome. Very awesome. And I'm going to let my other co-host speak up. That's Shawnee Benton Gibson. And we're going to have her talk a little bit. And then, I was rude. I'm so sorry. I just started talking like I normally do. So I have to introduce myself after we let Miss Shawnee. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. My pleasure. So what do you want me to share? My background, or do you want me to share around the subject matter, or both?
Whatever you feeling inclined to, so that the audience knows what we're dealing with here, because they might just wonder, who are these women that are talking to us about raising daughters? Who are they?
Well, for starters, I'm the mom of two phenomenal daughters. I have a 25-year-old daughter and a 26-year-old daughter who are now have evolved into these wonderful women, and I get an opportunity to be friends as well as mom to them, and to mentor them, and they provide mentorship for me. We flip-flop. I mean, it's an awesome thing. But my background is I'm a clinical social worker. I've been working in the field of social work for over 23 years. I also run an organization called Spirit of a Woman, or Soul Leadership Development Institute, and part of that organization is to provide rites of passage, structured rites of passage experiences for young girls and also adult women. So I've spent a lot of years working with women, with girls, dealing with issues that are familiar to us and unique to us as human beings and as spiritual beings who happen to be feminine. And I celebrate being a woman, and I have an awesome opportunity to heal my little girl every time I work with a young woman. And so this conversation is near and dear to my heart, because it took me a minute to figure out this thing called mothering a daughter. I was very young when I had my daughters. I was 20 when I had my first daughters, 21 when I had my second daughter, and I was clueless, but I didn't know I was clueless. And so I made a lot of mistakes, but one of the best things that I was able to do was speak truth once I developed an understanding of what that was, to tell my daughters what my story and history were, and not pretend like I was this pristine young woman that always did everything right. And that helped to support the development of our relationship, because they needed a real person mothering them, not this fictitious character who didn't do anything wrong ever in life. That was not real, and I didn't want to raise them that way. So I have a lot to share about mothering daughters, but I definitely want to hear what folks want to know, because I want to share based on what people want to figure out or find out what they're struggling with.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of information, Ms. Shawnee. You know what, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback, and I'm not really sure where it's coming from. So I'm going to turn my cell phone off. I don't know if it's my phone or maybe you guys' phone, but I would like to make sure that our audience hears the best broadcast that we can offer them. So check your phones as well. And I like what you said, Shawnee, because one of the things that I do know, and Candace can tell whether or not I'm telling the truth here, but I really believe that it is the responsibility of the mother to tell that story. I know I wasn't perfect, and why should she have to go? Why should my daughter have to go through the same issues and make the same mistakes that I made when all I have to do is open my mouth. And I think that that's, something that, we don't want them to know, okay, yeah, I did dope, or yeah, I did, some of the things that are just taboo. But on the other hand, this is your daughter. Candace, can you weigh in with me on that? What you think?
I think that you have to, there's a level of discreetness that you do want to take with your children, but I think it depends on their age and maturity level. I also think it also matters when you are able to share stories such as what you just described to deter them from making the same mistakes you made. And so I think it's really important to build that foundation of a relationship first, though, and then begin to talk about some of those, tougher topics or harder things that we encounter as women, as mothers and daughters and things like that. But I definitely think being open is the best, and being honest is the best, because sometimes you're not going to always do things that people agree with. And so when you're honest with your daughters, you can explain, well, I did it this way because of this, and let them make their own decisions as to what makes the most sense for them as they're growing up and becoming young women and young adults. So I think that's really important.
Okay. I completely agree with that, and I think that if I were just going to talk about in our culture as African American women, it's important, at least the way I was raised, for us to be strong women. And strong women didn't cry much, at least in my family, and we had a stiff upper lip. I don't know if you know anything about that, Shawnee, but you were to present to the outside your best face. It didn't matter whether you were broken inside, whether you had all kinds of family trauma, that of course, the way we were raised, what happened in the family, whether it was incest, whether it was molestation, whether it was, just really crazy stuff that does happen in families, that stuff stayed in the family. And so one of the reasons that I wanted to talk today with girls and women is that it's still going on. And there is very little outlet if your mother will not allow you to speak honestly. So, for example, I teach at the community college in my town, and one of the things that I had were students who would tell me that their mother had a new boyfriend, and the boyfriend was trying to have sex with them, the girls, the daughters, and when they told their mother, the mother kicked her out. What do you guys think about that? Who wants to weigh in on that one?
Well, when I was a young girl, I was raised by my grandparents. My mom was a young mom. She had me 2 months shy of her 16th birthday. And so I spent a lot of time just trying to figure out who she was as a woman. And one of the things that I experienced was her moving from relationship to relationship, which, young women do. My mother was 16. I was 2 months old. She was 16 years old, and she had additional children after that, and I watched her move through toxic relationships because she was immature. She was a child raising children, and she had back-to-back children. And my mother's fine with me sharing this story. I want to always say that, like, the stories that I share about family, they know that I share these stories. My mother is a very proud woman, and she's transformed her life, and so she shares her story so that others might grow. So I wanted to share that. But I just watched her and her struggles with her womanhood, struggles with toxicity that she experienced as a young girl. She had been molested. And, it's just the reality that girls are victims of predators, and sometimes the predators that they encounter are not the people on the streets. It's the people in their homes that they're interacting with, that feed them, clothe them, that are taking advantage of them, and that know them best, know what to do to take advantage of them in ways that damage them for the years to come as they evolve into women, and then also create people who hurt people.
Wow, that's so completely powerful.
Psychotherapists out of women.
Go ahead.
By family, and they're recovering from that. It was very devastating.
Taria, are you there? Oh no, she's muted herself out. Okay. Candace, did you want to talk? I know you don't talk personally about your clients, but you want to just weigh in on this at all?
Well, we definitely see this a lot, just in general. You're very correct that a lot of times the predators are in your family, and it's very difficult to be open because you love some of these family members, but they're also hurting you in a huge way and damaging you, sometimes for a lifetime, and without intensive therapy and just conversation, it's very difficult to overcome some of those things that happen to young women and young men. And so it's really important to make sure that your relationship is open with your daughters, because sometimes they don't know who to go to. And if it's a boyfriend or an uncle or a brother or somebody that they feel like, well, if I say this, they're going to leave the home or something's going to happen to them, where do you want your daughters to turn to? Where will they go if they don't feel comfortable talking with you about these very, very touchy subject matters? So it's really important.
And Cheryl, I'd like to add something to that,
Okay.
okay? One of the things that I had to learn to do as a mother, as a young mother myself, is to create a safe environment for my kids to talk, okay? So on the one hand, we want to tell our kids, and we should be telling our kids, that it's okay for them to come and talk to us about anything, the good things and the bad things. We want to know about it, but we also have to pay attention to how we react when we hear the things that we don't want to hear, or the information that's uncomfortable, to us. And that's something that I had to learn, okay, raising two kids. I have, my son is now 20, and my daughters are 18 and 16, okay? And I laugh and I smile at it sometimes, especially with my son, because he's very open with me, and I tease him all the time. I'm like, okay, you're 20 now. You can keep certain things to yourself, but that's the way that I raised him. But that did not come overnight. Okay, so I had to learn when my kids are coming to me and they're telling me and they're being honest and they're giving me that information that's very difficult for me to digest. How do I, number one, process it myself? Okay, and then two, who do I share that information with? Okay, do I go back and I tell their father? Is it appropriate for me to tell him right away in the heat of the moment when I know that his reaction might be a hard reaction? Do I share it with my mother, who in turn, turns around and tells them exactly what you told her? Okay, because she's the grandmother. How do I create that safe environment? So that's something that I had to learn. I had to learn how to make it where my kids would trust me with the information that they're sharing.
Wow. I just want to speak to that because I can remember having secrets. I know everybody has them, but I can remember saying to my mom, I'm going to tell you something and I don't want you to say anything about it. And I don't even want you to bring it up again until I bring it up to you. So I appreciate what you're saying about the safe space because, as a young girl, all kinds of things are happening. And the worst to me would be to hear it again from my aunt, from my grandmother, from my uncle. So you're absolutely right, Taria. It's creating that place, that safe place. I can remember even Candace saying to me, I don't know if you remember this, Candace, but at one point I said to her, we had a rule that if she went out with someone and it wasn't, she decided that it wasn't a good place for her to be, she was ready to come home and they weren't ready, I said, you can always call me. And her response to me was, yeah, but you get excited so easily, Mom. Like, I don't know if I can really trust you on this one because you get so excited, And I said, listen, I might get excited, but don't worry about that because I have to deal with me. You're my responsibility, kind of thing. So I think that that's important for us as women. Even if we grew up in environments where it wasn't safe for us, we have to make environments for our girls safe. Anybody want to say anything about that? All right, let me talk about something that is near and dear to me. So this is the subject of using words that really make a difference. So it bothers me, like I am being really mild about this. It freaks me out when I hear a woman cursing out her kids, but especially her daughter. So I call that using, like, hey, okay, forgive me in advance, bitch. You'll never be anything. When we talk like that, those are the kind of phrases and words that stay with us forever, right? You will always remember the bad things that somebody said to you as opposed to good things, especially if it's somebody like your mom. So what I want to know from the audience is, what can we do to tone that down and wipe it out? What can we do? What do you guys think? Who wants to speak on this one?
Well, I just think that, oh, I'm sorry, you can go ahead.
That's fine.
Which one? Which one? Go ahead, Candace.
I was just going to say, I think that it's really important to utilize coping skills so that when we are upset, you're able to, take 5 minutes and take a break, or to take a deep breath, or to count to 10, and things that you learn as a young person, but as we become adults, we sometimes forget those skills that we have, especially in the heated moment, and we're really upset. But I completely agree, when you use words that are negative and derogatory, even if you apologize, once it's out of your mouth, it's out of your mouth. You can't really take it back. And so I think it's really important to be mindful of how you speak with your children and the things that you say, because that resonates with them their whole life. I mean, think about, single mothers, single fathers, and their first thing out of their mouth when they're upset is, you're just like your mother, you're just like your father. And so to the kid, that translates, well, does that mean that I'm a bad person? Does that mean my mother or my father is a bad person? And in actuality, probably not. But the way that they receive that is exactly what that sounds like, is, yeah, you're doing this and therefore it's bad. And so we definitely have to be conscious of that when we're talking to one another.
Just in my work, I talk about words a lot. Words create your world, and it's hard for a parent to speak life into another human being, whether it's their children or adults. They don't know what that modeled in their own lives, and so I encourage new parents who are out there listening. If you can't afford to engage in a therapeutic process, if you feel like you've been wounded and hurt and you don't know how to adjust your language and even your posture, your energy, on your emotional state, to seek out free support groups, to seek out models that you see in the community of parents that you feel are edifying your children and speaking in ways that really expand them as human beings. Because not everybody has access to therapy or believe in that as a way of addressing their issues. But there are models in the community, and when I coach parents or couples, when I coach people who are in partnership with one another, I talk to them a lot about collaborating with other individuals who are going to hold them accountable for the language they use, for the commitments that they make, people who are bold enough to check them, so that when they are speaking to parents to their children and they witness it, they would say something about it, not from judgment, a place of love, to support them in transforming the language and that way of being everybody. Because when we witness that in the community, we get damaged. I know I feel sick when I'm witnessing the bus or the train. I live in New York, so I see all kinds of things. And sometimes I ride the train and the bus, and I feel like I have to purge once I get off, because I've heard so much toxic stuff just riding for 10 minutes on the bus. We have to hold each other accountable, and we're afraid of each other. It makes it hard for us to use these relationships and connect and build community, because we're afraid to address each other when we used to do that before.
Okay, so let's take a couple of minutes and move to the audience. First of all, what we're going to do is, whoever is speaking, the rest of us are going to mute our mics. I think it'll be easier for the audience to hear us. Like, I can hear you guys fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so if you just take your mouse and go to, right, then hopefully I won't mute the person that's actually talking. But when we're not talking, then let's mute it, and that way we maybe won't have a feedback. I'm getting that from, okay. All right, and then the other thing I'd like is, let's go back to the Facebook community, and please share what your thoughts are with what we're saying right now. Is this making any sense to you, mothers, daughters? I mean, weigh in and let us know. Tell us who you are. If you feel like saying that, you don't have to give us your whole name. Just give us part of your name. Tell us if we are actually saying the kind of things that you want to hear, and if there are other topics that are important to you. For example, are you having are you having any issues at all, or are you, maybe your daughter is not a tween or a teen, and so she's not at that point, but are you thinking ahead? How do you handle her as she gets going? I know some of the mothers that I have spoken with when I've done speaking engagements have said to me, she's starting to have an attitude, and when I tell her to do something, she just rolls her eyes. And when we were growing up, if we rolled our eyes, we were on the floor. We were knocked to the floor. And yet that is not what is acceptable in our society anymore. So, you knock somebody to the floor, the next thing you know, somebody has hotlined you, whether it's a teacher, anybody that hears that is working with kids has a responsibility of hotlining you, meaning calling the Children and Family Services to have the child removed from the home. So it's a lot more serious, and yet we still have the responsibility to raise wonderful kids. So how do we do that, especially our daughters? Okay, somebody got to speak.
Just like I said, let us don't all answer at once. I've been hotline before.
Taria, go ahead.
I've been hotline before. That's a nice catchy term for it, okay? But make no mistake, I communicate to my children that they were blessed upon me. They're my blessing, okay? And they were placed into my care and my responsibility. And to know and understand that by all means, I am responsible for you. I'm responsible for raising you. I'm responsible for training you in the path at which you should grow to be decent, respectable people, human beings, members of society. Okay? So there's no pushback when it comes to me correcting you. Okay? Because once again, nobody loves you more than I love you. And as a parent, I would never do anything willingly to put you in harm's way. So that goes back to the trust again. So you have to trust and believe that as your parent, I'm going to do the best that I could do to take care of you. And part of that doesn't mean only that you get the things that you need and want. You also get the discipline that's necessary as well. So if I say, no, you can't have something, there's nobody that trumps my no. Okay? If your dad says no, that you can't have something or you can't do something, nobody trumps his no. Okay? Society is not raising you. These are the conversations that I've had. Like I said, my son, he's now 20, but I've had this conversation with my son. Okay? The state is not raising you. Other people in the street is not raising you. I'm the one that's raising you. Your father is the one that's raising you. We accept the responsibility of taking care of you. Now, when you go over our authority and our respect, and you go out there and you do something wrong, society is not going to take care of you. Okay, society has a place, okay, for you. It's called juvie or it's called jail. And they're not going to give you all the things. They're not going to set aside money for your college tuition like your dad and I have. Okay? So once again, you just have to trust and believe that I'm going to do my best because I accepted the responsibility of taking care of you. Your dad is going to do his best because he's accepted the responsibility of taking care of you. You just have to know and believe that. So when we say no, we're saying it for your own good, not just because we have the power to say no. There's a lesson to be learned. We're trying to teach you something. So if you just sit still and be quiet for a minute, you'll understand and you'll see. And so I'm very proud to say that I stuck by a lot of the principles that my mom and my dad installed in me. Okay? Growing up, there was no answering back, like you said, Cheryl. When Dad said no. There was no going to mommy with those puppy dog eyes and thinking that she was going to, turn around and give you a different answer. And as a child, I couldn't understand that at the moment. But when I had my kids, I understood every single lesson that my parents were trying to teach me. I understood the values that they were instilling in me. And I'm glad because I'm able to now pass that on to my kids. And I'm hoping that they remember that when they have their kids. And that's what I tell them too. And like you said, keep the conversation open. I know you don't understand it now. I know it doesn't make sense to you now. I know you don't see it now, but you have to trust and believe when you have your kids, you're going to understand because you're going to have that same feeling in the pit of your stomach every time they leave the door. When they're not in your sight, you get that feeling because you just don't know because you can't see. You're not there with them every single moment. So when you have your kids, you're not going to want to have the conversation explaining every single decision. No, I said no, and that's it. And you just have to respect that and deal with that. There's a time and place for us to discuss certain things. That's not the time for us to discuss it. Right now, you just need to listen. And that's all I need you to do at this moment is just listen. And that's my 2 cents.
That's a lot of 2 cents right there. Can you all hear me? So I completely agree with what you're saying, Taria. Here's my question for this group right here. So what do we say to the mother who is on that line, who really, loves her kids to death, to pieces, is having a hard time getting them to do, especially her daughter, what she wants her to do? What do you say to that? What do you say to that mother?
I mean, I think that it's important to say to them, what is it that the daughter really needs? What are her needs? And sometimes we're not addressing the need of the child. And when the needs of the child are being met, then you tend to have less issues than if they're not being met. And sometimes the need is attention. And so when you find that you are not supplying the amount of attention that they need or in the right ways, they act out. And it's simply to get attention. Any type of attention is good attention according to a child, even if it's negative or positive. And so when you're able to meet the needs of the child, then you find that there's less acting out behavior. But there's always a need that's not met when a child is not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I was muted about to talk. One of the things that I will add that hasn't been mentioned, I shared earlier that I run an organization that provides rites of passage services and support to young girls and their families. And one of the things that I incorporated as my daughters were reaching puberty was the community. There's something in African tradition called an imbonji. And what that is the community comes together and they caucus and meet around issues that are pertinent to a family or to the community at large. And in that community, because I trust community and because I built a community around me that insulated myself and my daughters, when things would come up and I couldn't manage it on my own, I would request the support of the community. We would come together so that my daughters would be heard. And not only would it be adults that would support the conversation, but they would have allies in their age group or a little bit older supporting them so they could say what they needed to say. I'm a big person on reciprocal communication. So just because I'm an adult does not mean I have the proper answers or that I'm operating from above board in reference to my emotional state and my mental state. When they were young and I was figuring things out, I made lots of mistakes and they saw me do some things that were questionable, and I couldn't use I'm the mother or I'm grown to dismiss that. And so I had to humble myself, and the community would check me and they would check them, and we would all be together creating that space. And it was spiritual as well as it was multiple things: mental, spiritual, and emotional healing and expansion. And it took something as a mom to be sitting there and taking responsibility and ownership for what I did and didn't do as a mother. But it was supportive to have all those witnesses and eyes allowing us to share and vent, but also holding us accountable as the young daughters and also as the mom, and then creating an action plan and then checking back in with me to make sure that I was good and I was honoring it, and then also checking back in with them. It's not the normal pattern and process and structure, but it transformed my relationship with my daughters. And now I have adult daughters who practice what they were taught and teach that, and we honor each other as women because of those things that we did together in that stage of development that they were in, because those were trying times. So, I just wanted to share that there are lots of ways to support our children. We just need to be innovative because the times call for that. We can't always do what was done before because this is a new breed of children. We need to be really creative in the way that we manage them, and we definitely need community support. We can't do this by ourselves.
Thank you both. I completely agree with what you said, Shawnee, as well as what Candace said as well. I think it takes a village. When we say that, it's the truth. It's not. I remember at one point I was divorced, and even then there was a community. I had, not only my mother and my grandma. Well, didn't have my grandmother at that point, but I also had my mother-in-law and my ex. I mean, it was a group of us. Because I didn't know everything, and as much as I wanted to know everything, I did not know that. And so, you do have to have people that you trust, that you can go and talk to. And I think the thing that you said, Shawnee, about being humble and letting our daughters know, I think that that's part of growing up. You're mature if you can say, you know what, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I mean, it's not the easiest words to say, but they're most definitely important, because when you do that, there's something about asking somebody to forgive you that humbles them as well and makes them feel less combative and angry. Because like you said, there's some trying times. I mean, raising a daughter who is so much like you, when you see it, it's like looking in the mirror, and yet you want her to be something that you couldn't be. And that's really tough. You want her to be perfect. You weren't perfect. And I think nowadays, like you said, this is a different batch of young people, and it's important. They've got a lot of influences coming in. They've got access to people all across the world that we didn't necessarily have. In our community, it was our community, unless you went and visited your grandparents, and then you had their community and that kind of thing. But nowadays, you could talk to somebody in another country as easily as you talk to somebody in the next bedroom, and their values get put in on our kids. And so it's important, like you say, leaving a space open. One of the things that I find, I remember, Candace, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I think about, just the period of time when our young ladies are adolescents. And so there's always a queen of the group, and I like that movie Mean Girls, because you get a chance to really see young girls in action. Somebody wants to be the head of the group, and then they're going to tell you who you can and can't associate with. So if you haven't been talking to your child, your daughter, and bolstering her up and letting her know that you think she is the great, she's just the cat's meow, and making her feel that she has high self-esteem, she gets among a group of other girls who don't have that same kind of training, and what happens? Self-esteem goes right down the drain. So, I mean, you really have to stay on with your girls.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think influences are really huge right now. And I think they've always been. I think with each generation, things change. There's always a new fad or something that everyone is interested in. There's always a new music group, always a new television or any type of drama series that's really interesting with each generation. And so right now we're in the era of technology, and technology is huge. And everyone wants to have a smartphone or device. We all have, any type of Android or iPhones or any type of tablets, iPads, computers, things like that. And that's the way we communicate. And so a lot of times, the type of socialization that you would get or the social norms that we form with just simple conversation face to face is very different with the way that we communicate via technology. And so at school, you can learn something about somebody without even talking to them. You know, I look at like my friends and how they developed and people I went to high school with or college with, and I know all about their life just by Facebook. I know if they've gotten married. I know if they've had children. I know if they've been divorced. I know if they, you know, have gone on vacation or they've had a birthday party. I mean, there's so much knowledge that we get just by social media that it's very easy to be influenced in one way or the other. And so as adolescents, if they have access to these types of devices, you have to be really careful, because you're right, they can talk to someone across the world just like they can talk to someone right next door to them. And so it's really important to encourage your daughters to remain their unique self. And what I mean by that is just be proud of who you are, for the way that you were designed, the way you were created, how your hair looks, your skin, your tone, your textures, and everything like that, because there's only one you. And so when young women want to mirror other women, you know, a lot of times it's not always in the best light. And so it's really important to lift up your daughters. It's really important to encourage them to be responsible for themselves, but also to be a leader. And everyone doesn't have that natural born quality. Some people have to work at being a leader. Some people, you know, don't mind being led. And so it's really important to have that close-knit group of women around, so that you know that if your daughter is being led, she's being led in the right direction and she's being led in a positive way. So I think it's really important to take note of that, especially with the amount of technology that we have access to. So, yeah.
Wow, that's my daughter right there. That's my daughter. I love her. I love you, Candace. One of the things I just want to stop for a moment and let people know how they can get in touch with us. If you have not put your name and some comment in the Facebook community called Mother-Daughter Conversations, please do so right now so we know that you joined us. And then what I'd like you to do as a way to get information that I can share with my co-hosts is go ahead and pull out your cell phone. And what I'd like you to do, I'm going to give you a minute, pull it out. This is a great time. This is a way for us to connect and stay in touch with you and let you know of upcoming events, you know, things that are coming down the pike that have to do with you as a mother or with you as a woman. And so we want to be able to share information with you. So if you pull out your phone and you text the word TEST, T-E-S-T, to this number, then we will be able, it'll ask you some questions, and then you will be able to stay in touch with us. Phone number is 708-501-7060. I'll say the number one more time, 708-501-7060. And again, that will help us stay in touch with you. I can share that with Shawnee and with Taria and with Candace. And if you just, we're wrapping up, coming up on 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'd like each of my co-hosts to share one last thing that they'd like to say to you. And so let me turn the mic over.
Who do you want to start with? Should I start? Okay, awesome. So one of the things that I would love to share is that as a mom and as a daughter, I speak often about partnering with power, having powerful partnerships. And one of the things that made the partnerships with my daughters powerful is that we co-created spaces to be together. We're artists, so we composed music together. You know, I ran the Rites of Passage. Once they graduated, they became the leaders of the Rites of Passage. One of my daughters is a writer, so we've written a play together. I mean, there are things that you can do with your daughter, cooking. You may share your favorite shows together. Whatever it is, have something that you co-create with each other. You know, we all have our separate lives, and the girls, they have their friends, you know, in their age group, and they go to school. But, you know, something in your home that you co-create together keeps that partnership and that bond growing and expanding. And because I had multiple things that I did with my children along the lines of arts and creation and community work, that it transformed how we related to one another. And once again, they adopted those ways of being. And now I have little mini me's that are in the community teaching and guiding and counseling and coaching people. And it's amazing to see how they have evolved and have taken what I've taught them to the next level. So mothers and daughters, create something that you can bond with on. You don't have to be exactly alike to do something together that empowers and also inspires and also creates affinity in your relationship.
I completely agree. I completely agree. What I would like to leave with is it's never too late. It's never too late to create a relationship with your mother or with your daughter, even if you all haven't talked in 5 years. You know, it's never too late to start that relationship. And you can start it either where you left off, or if you've never really had a relationship, you can start it on that day. But as we evolve as women and as we go through life and things change, people change. And so it's really important to try to stay in touch with one another. We don't always live in the same city, but always try to make a time, like you said, Shawnee, with your parent or with your daughter. I know my time with my mother is every morning. I usually call her on my way to work. And sometimes she's not available. So then I'm like, well, where are you? Because you're supposed to be available. And so we try to keep in touch, and even if it's just to say hi, or I'm on my way to work and I'm sleepy, or I have this really big meeting coming up, we always like to stay in touch that way. And so we talk to each other every morning before work. And that's kind of a part of my meditation in the morning, is talking to her. And so it's really important to, again, continue to form and improve our relationships with one another, because, you know, that's all we have. And so mothers are very important, especially for a daughter.
Sure.
You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at CAW Therapy. I also have a Facebook page, which is Candace A. Williams, and then I also have a website, which is also CandaceAWilliams.com, if you want to get in touch.
Seelin, may I mention how to get in touch with me? And thank you, Candace, because I didn't even think of that. I forget sometimes. I get caught up with the subject matter and forget about sharing about where I'm at. So I have a personal page. It's Shawnee Benton Gibson. I also have a page called Spirit of a Woman. You can find me on Facebook, and I have a Twitter account, which is Shawnee the Griot, with Griot, which means storyteller. So anybody who wants to reach out to me, you know, for support, coaching, guidance around parenting daughters, I am here and I'm available. So just holler, and then I will support you if I can.
Okay, and Cheryl, just as a reminder for both Candace and Shawnee, okay, you could also go over to the Mother-Daughter Conversations group in Facebook, and please place your contact information there, okay? So even members of the group who weren't able to attend this broadcast tonight will still be able to have the opportunity to reach out, you know, to you, to check out your pages, and have the ability to contact you. Okay. In closing, Cheryl, I'd just like to just piggyback on what Candace said, because it's so important. And as she was speaking, I started to write my notes on what I was going to say. And I would like to encourage mothers to please just keep loving on your daughters. Keep loving on your daughters. Keep loving on your daughters. Okay? And to always keep the lines of communication open. It is very funny when I look back at the relationship that I have with my mom now. As a little girl, my mom always used to boast that she had no friends. And the only friend that she had was her mom. And so as a little girl, every day I would see my mom after work get on the phone and call her mom and spend no less than 2 hours on the phone talking to her mom every single day. Okay? And then on Saturdays, as a family, we would all go over to my grandmother's house and we would spend the day with my grandmother. My grandmother has since passed. She's passed about 16 years now. And I've become that to my mom, where I call my mom every single day and we talk, okay, no less than an hour. And I could understand Candace, because when I call her and she doesn't answer the phone, I'm like, where are you? You're supposed to be home waiting for me to call. And it's the same thing when she calls. She's like, where are you? She always says, where are you? Are you on the road again? You don't know what time it is? You're supposed to be at home. It's this time of night. And what I started to pay attention to is my daughters are now doing the same thing. And I have to make that time for them. So when my daughters call and they want to talk, and they want to talk about things sometimes that in their teenage world and your adult world, it might not necessarily be the things that you have on your agenda to talk about, or it might not rate number one in your world. But the simple fact is, because it's coming from your daughter, you have to make the time to sit, listen, be involved with what they're involved in, know who their friends are, encourage them, okay, to bring their friends around, because you want to get to know who their friends are, and encourage their friends. If they don't have someone to talk to at home, they have a safe place where they could talk. It's all about the communication, and once you keep the line of communication open, understanding has the ability to grow. Okay.
Oh my goodness. You guys are just fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. You made me think as you were talking to Ria. Well, Candace, thank you so much for reminding me that I am to be available to you. But one of the things that I want to say is I want to be available. And the thing that's really interesting is that if you will start wherever you are building that relationship, whether, like she said, whether it's been 5 years since you all talked or were able to talk civilly, or whether it was just a week, you start now. There's no time like now, because when your mom is no longer available, when she's gone on to the next chapter in her life, meaning that she's transitioned from earth, then like my mother has, you think about those conversations that maybe you didn't get a chance to have, and you can't have them anymore. So now is the time. It may be awkward in the beginning, that's okay. Let it be awkward. If it's just hello, how are you? Just calling to say hi. In this day of technology, send a text message. Well, depends on your mom, but make some way. And with your daughters, absolutely, because I tell you what, there's a hole in your life when you don't have that relationship with your mother. It really is. I thank you for joining us tonight. I am Ms. Parent Guru C. Lynn Williams, author of 3 parenting books. I'm available on Amazon.com, but reach out to us all on Facebook, and our group is called Mother-Daughter Conversations.
Okay, and Cheryl, before we go, I just want to say a couple of quick thank yous, okay, for members that we had in the group today that posted comments. Okay, so just bear with me one moment while I bring up, there's a comment here that I saw and I'm trying to locate it again, and please don't tell me that I can't find it. Oh my gosh. There was a young lady out there, I think it's Orlinda Richard Hodge, who just wanted to thank you for providing such a wonderful platform with your mother-daughter conversations. She was tuned in to the broadcast tonight. Peace and blessings to all. I'm enjoying the presentation, and I'm happy to have this medium to learn and grow. So thank you, Orlinda, for just stating that, and letting us know that you have received value from the broadcast this evening.
Wonderful. Well, as we say, hasta mañana. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you again, and our broadcast is over. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.